Hello, I'm Ruth.
And I'm Kyle.
Today we're going to be talking about subjects. This is something we touched upon in our last video, which was on sentences, and I recommend you do check out. But it's something we think it's worth the while we put a little more time into explaining in some more depth. Okay, so what is a subject? To start things off. So a subject is the thing or person in a sentence that does, performs, or controls the verb. It's kind of, the main character of the sentence. It's what's making things happen. Examples: the dog chases the ball. The subject here is dog. The dog is the thing doing the chasing to the ball. In the second one, the chocolate cake. The chocolate cake is the subject. The chocolate cake is what's being delicious. It's doing the verb. Secondly, usually a subject is necessary to make a sentence grammatically correct. Okay, so we pretty much always need a subject and a predicate, as we talked about in our previous video. There is an exception to this, which is when we have imperative sentences, as in the example here, eat your vegetables, or run away. I don't know. These are imperative sentences. And here the subject is implied, okay? The subject is the person that's being spoken to. So we don't really need to include it, but that's the only exception. Generally speaking, a subject is necessary for a sentence.
So some of the things that we can use as subjects are nouns. Nouns are the most common form of subjects, and they're used to describe people, places, or things. In the sentences that we have provided, you can see in the bold words that computer represents a thing, prince represents a person, and school represents a place. Another option that we can use are pronouns. Pronouns can replace a noun and make it a little simpler by using things such as I, he, or somebody. And the sentence examples that we have, such as I broke the computer, I being the pronoun. Then we can take this a little bit further and use something called noun phrases. Noun phrases are groups of words that give a little bit more information about the noun, such as the old computer froze. The noun phrase then is not just computer as the noun, it's the old computer to make a noun phrase. To make this a little bit more complicated, we can use noun clauses. Noun clauses give a little bit more information about the noun, but they also use a verb, such as the frog the princess kissed. In these forms of subjects, noun clauses include the noun and give a little bit more information by including a verb.
Okay, brilliant. There are other options we have in terms of what we want to use as our subject. So we can also use gerunds, okay? And a gerund is a verb in a noun form, okay? Always ends in ing. It's when we're talking about a verb as a concept. So not to sing, but singing. Okay, so example here would be singing makes me feel happy. The subject here is the gerund singing, which is the noun form of sing. Another one would be walking is good for circulation. We're talking about the idea of walking and giving some information about it. Gerunds can be elaborated into gerund phrases, okay? So it acts the same as the gerund, but there's a little more information. It's a bit more fleshed out. It's more specific what it is we're talking about. So examples could be traveling the world is a lifelong dream. We've got the gerund here, traveling, but it's not just traveling we're talking about, it's traveling the world specifically is our subject here. The second example, walking to school is healthier than taking the bus. So the subject here isn't just walking, it's walking to school. It's more specific again. Okay. Another option, which is quite similar to a gerund, would be an infinitive. So an infinitive again is when the verb acts as a noun in a slightly different way. So whereas a gerund would end in ing, in an infinitive we always have the word to and the verb in its simple form, as in these examples here. To laugh is better than to frown. The subject here is to laugh. It's the idea of laughing. It's the verb laugh, again in a noun form, talking about it conceptually, what it means to laugh, what it would be like to laugh. The second example, to leave, would be rude. Okay, and again, we can have infinitive phrases. You might see a pattern coming on here. So in an infinitive phrase, again, we've got the infinitive, to, and the verb in simple form, and a little more information. To fall in love is exciting and scary. It's not just to fall, it's a certain kind of to fall in love. To get a medical degree is her goal. The subject here is to get a medical degree. That's what we're talking about in this sentence.
So we know that each sentence needs to have a subject and a verb predicate. But what do we do when sometimes there aren't any subjects in our sentence? There aren't any subjects to be used or that we're talking about. When this happens, we use what's called a dummy pronoun. There are two types of dummy pronouns, one being there and one being it. To provide an example, we have, there is a party at Isabel's tonight. We use there because there's no subject in this sentence, but in order to follow all of the rules on how to properly construct a sentence, we include the word there. This is also true with the word it, such as in the sentence, it is 6 o'clock. There's no subject in this sentence, so we use the word it so that we have a subject to fulfill the rules of making a proper sentence.
Something else we need to talk about when we're looking at subjects is subject pronouns, okay? And I'm going to give us an example straight away to explain what these are. Subject pronouns are something we use to refer back to existing subjects that we've already established. As in these examples, so, my brother lives in the UK. He is studying to be a doctor. Here we have the subject pronoun he. And this replaces the subject, my brother. It refers back to it, just to avoid repetition. It would sound dull if we said, my brother lives in the UK. My brother is studying to be a doctor. He breaks it up a bit and makes it sound more interesting. Do be careful when using subject pronouns that it is clear which subject you're referring to. For example, if I were to introduce another subject after my brother, it might not be clear who he refers to, as in this example. So, my brother lives in the UK. He lives with his friend, Fred. He is studying to be a doctor. Now that I've introduced another subject, it might not be too clear who that he is referring to. Is it my brother or is it Fred? So do be careful that it's obvious which subject your subject pronoun is replacing. We're going to look at another example. The file is ready. It is on the table over there. So obviously when it's not gendered, we use the neutral it as the subject pronoun here.
So we also need to pay close attention to where we're positioning our subjects. So when we write sentences, we usually have the subject in the beginning of the sentence and it is followed by the verb. We can see this in our first two examples. But then when we want to change how we're speaking and ask a question, we see that first we use an auxiliary verb such as do, is, or would. Then we use the subject and it is followed by our main verb such as do you like cheesecake? we see the auxiliary verb, do, the subject, you, and the main verb, like.
Okay. Slightly related to the positioning of the subject in the sentence is an idea of passive or active voice. So let's look at these examples. We have the first one, John baked a cake. This is an example of an active voiced sentence. We've got the subject, John, and this subject is doing something. It's active. John baked a cake. He's doing baking. He's doing something. The second example, a cake was baked by John. In this one, the subject, a cake, isn't doing anything. It's having something done to it. A cake was baked. It's being baked. It's passive. Let's look at another example if that's still confusing. The amateur group performed the play. This is active. The amateur group, our subject, is doing something. It's performing a play. Whereas if we change this round to its passive form, it would be the play was performed by the amateur group. So here the subject play is being passive. It's not doing anything itself. It's having something done to it. And we can see we can use the passive or the active voice to shift the emphasis in our sentences. So perhaps if I was talking about this amateur group and what they've been up to, I might say that they performed the play. However, if I was talking about a certain play and its various productions, I might say that the play was performed by this certain amateur group. So it shifts the emphasis and enables us to move the focus of what we want to talk about in the sentence.
Some important things that we should keep in mind when we're thinking about subjects and how to write our sentences are, first, our subjects and our verbs always need to agree. We need to ensure that we conjugate our verbs according to our subject. That is, they should always be in agreement. For example, I like and she likes. And this is particularly important when we're thinking about pronouns such as everybody or somebody. This is very important because these words may sound as if they're plural, but they're actually singular. So we wouldn't say everybody swim, we'd say everybody swims. And keep in mind, you should never double your subjects. For example, if you're saying Maria went to the store, you wouldn't say Maria, she went to the store. You just use one subject and say Maria went to the store. Lastly, don't forget your dummy pronouns. As we said, a sentence always needs to have a subject and a verb predicate. If you don't have a subject in your sentence, it's not a proper sentence. So you need to use their or it to ensure that you meet the rules of making a proper sentence.
Okay, thank you for watching and for your attention. And I hope that has cleared up some of your confusion perhaps about what a subject is and how we can use it. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.